In this video, we're going to break down 5 popular workout routines and explain the science behind them and exactly what they do to your body. Over the past 10 years, I've studied the science of exercise and trained thousands of clients to look and feel their best. So I want to share that science and also my pro tips for getting the most out of your exercise routine with you. Stick around to the end because I have one bonus tip that I think is probably the coolest out of all of them. All right, let's go ahead and start off with the science of high intensity interval training. And this one is actually surprisingly one of the most misunderstood methods of training. When done properly, high intensity interval training or HIIT training is very challenging. It involves maximizing your VO2 max, or the body's ability to use oxygen at high intensity. Studies show that during true high intensity interval training, you're pushing to around 170% of your VO2 max. Now you might be wondering, how do you get over 100%? Isn't that the maximum? Well, VO2 max is the maximum amount of oxygen that your body can use per minute. But like me in grad school, during really high intensity activity, your body goes into debt. But rather than student loan debt, your body actually goes into what's called oxygen debt. Oxygen debt is basically like a tab that your body runs up during intense exercise. When you push your body really hard, like during a sprint, you use up more oxygen than your body can supply in the moment. After you finish your workout, your body has to work to pay back that oxygen debt by continuing to breathe heavy and bring in extra oxygen and recover to return everything to normal. This is why you might notice that you're actually still sweating 20 to 30 minutes after a really hard workout. As you're still sweating, and in fact for 24 hours after your training session, you could still have what's called the afterburn effect. This is where your body continues to burn calories for hours after your workout. That said though, this afterburn effect can often be exaggerated. It doesn't by any means double the calories of your workout, it adds about 15% more calories. So you can kind of think of it like getting free dessert without the calories. For a 500 calorie workout, for example, you can burn an additional 75 calories after the workout. But in my opinion, the more important thing than the calorie burn is how much aerobic and anaerobic fitness you can gain. For example, it's been shown to increase aerobic fitness by 14% and anaerobic fitness by 28% in just 6 weeks. This is a great result for less than 20 minutes of training per week. But this is a good time to mention that this is only if you're doing true high intensity interval training. In the research, this was done with 20-second bouts of really hard high intensity bike sprints, not tricep kickbacks or band side steps. If you're doing all out 20-second efforts 8 times and you're doing that 3 times a week, this is going to be really challenging. So if you want to really get the full benefits of high intensity interval training, you have to choose exercises that you can really push yourself and drive your heart rate way up in a short period of time. I only recommend doing HIIT training 1 to 2 times per week max for most people. It's really easy to overdo this and fatigue your body, which would actually lower your overall performance. HIIT is typically not a really good choice for those who are already really stressed out because it does spike your stress hormone cortisol. So while you can get a lot of good benefits if you push really hard for a short period of time, there is kind of a limit to how much of this you can do sustainably per week without seeing negative results. But that brings us to method number 2, which is endurance training. Endurance training is all about the long game. Many people think that you have to constantly push yourself to feel like you got a good run to really be doing endurance training, but in reality, it's often more beneficial to train at a low intensity, below, for example, about 70% of your maximum heart rate. That's because endurance training builds your aerobic system. This helps your body adapt to use oxygen more efficiently, which is critical for long duration exercise. It may be surprising at first, but it actually makes sense that to improve your aerobic system, you have to run at low enough intensity to be using your aerobic system. When we go above threshold, running becomes anaerobic and less work is done by the aerobic enzymes and the aerobic processes of the body. Now, you might be wondering though, what is threshold? Well, threshold, generally speaking, means where it becomes difficult to talk when you're running. There's going to be a point where it becomes difficult to speak normally and fluidly. This is typically where your threshold is. And it can range anywhere from about 65% to 90% of your maximum heart rate, depending on your fitness level. So when we're doing our endurance training or our aerobic training, we want to be below that threshold, even if that means that it doesn't feel like you got a good run. In fact, most recreational runners that I've trained have to alternate between running and walking to stay below threshold. For example, 4 minutes of running, 1 minute of walking, 4 minutes of running, 1 minute of walking to keep their heart rate down. This can definitely be humbling, but spending time training below threshold can pay off in the long run. And even if you're not an endurance athlete, below threshold aerobic work has significant cardiovascular benefits and even mental health benefits as well. A lot of people really find that it's enjoyable, mood boosting, and healthy once they've adopted it. Okay, so here are some pro tips. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to always go hard and get a good run, especially if the goal is to train endurance. Focus on total volume over speed, meaning the key to success is logging those miles and being consistent. Also, it can be really helpful to break your training into phases. Base building typically comes first with a lot of long, slow, steady miles. Then you can layer in specific work like speed or hill training or a time trial for a 5K or a mile run. This is actually the approach that even Olympic runners use. They do several months of base building with a lot of relatively slower miles. Then as they get close to the 5K or the 10K that they're competing in, they'll do more specific speed work and intervals. You can use the same strategy and take advantage of the same science that they are using to optimize your own training. All right, now let's go ahead and move on to strategy number 3, which is muscle building, or what's called hypertrophy training. This is what most people think of when they picture bodybuilding, for example. One piece of science that I find fascinating in this area is just the process of muscle protein synthesis. The protein that you eat is made up of what's called amino acids. I like to think of them like little Legos. Your body is breaking down that protein that you eat into these Lego building blocks within your body. And then after lifting, your body sends signals through the body to begin rebuilding those Lego blocks as muscle protein. You're eating protein, you're breaking it down into its component parts, the amino acids, and then you're rebuilding it as muscle. But how do you do that most efficiently? New research has actually recently shown that muscles respond particularly well to being worked in a stretch position. When you include a stretch position under load, for example, at the bottom of a squat or an RDL, or with the stretch position of a chest fly, it stimulates greater growth. One of the main principles here is mechanical tension, and it is a key driver of muscle gain. A couple of pro tips here. Number 1 is to prioritize compound movements like squats and deadlifts, especially if you don't have that much time to train. That's because these bigger movements engage many muscles in the body, and more total muscle mass recruited during your workout will typically lead to more growth. Aim for moderate reps, around 4 to 10 reps per set, and focus on achieving a deep stretch position under tension. I find it really beneficial to be working towards a specific 6 rep max PR. For example, if you can incline bench 80-pound dumbbells right now for only 4 reps, then you can progress over a few weeks toward the goal of hitting 6 reps. Then you can just move up your goal and make your next goal hitting 85s for 6 reps. Having those specific goals can really make a difference with pushing yourself in the gym, staying motivated, and feeling like you're on track. All right, next we're gonna move into a topic that has a ton of really interesting research on it, which is plyometric training, or what you might be thinking of as vertical jump training. But before we jump into that, a quick thank you to our sponsor, 10,000. I've been wearing the 10,000 interval shorts for my workouts, and they feel great. They're super stretchy, they have a comfortable liner, and they're really good for both resistance training and endurance training, which I do both of. So if you've been thinking about upgrading your workout gear, definitely head over to 10,000 and see the different color options and workout sets that you can make. I find that having a comfortable workout set that fits you well just makes you feel better and helps you have a good workout. So head to 10,000.cc and use code MOVEMENT for 20% off. Now, back to the video. Okay, so plyometrics is what a lot of people think of as jump training. It's all about explosiveness, training the body to quickly stretch and contract muscles to create power, to jump, sprint, throw, and more. But not all jumping exercises are plyometrics. In fact, the most common jumping exercise in the gym, the box jump, really isn't even a plyometric exercise. That's because plyometrics need to involve what's called the stretch shortening cycle. This is when there's a fast lengthening and shortening of the muscles and tendons. To get that fast lengthening and shortening, you need ground reaction forces, meaning that you need to land and jump back up immediately. This occurs in movements like a pogo jump, bounding, hopping, sprinting, and other movements when you hit the ground and take off immediately. With true plyometrics, your muscles and tendons absorb energy and then quickly release it, much like compressing and releasing a spring. You might be surprised to learn that plyometrics involve almost entirely isometric muscle action. That's because with really quick lengthening and shortening, most of that's occurring through the tendon while the muscle holds on strong and tight as an isometric contraction. This type of training enhances your power, speed, and agility, which is critical for sports performance. Here are some pro tips with plyometric training. Plyometrics can be low intensity or high intensity. A lot of people only think of plyometrics as jumping as high as possible. The problem is, when you're doing those really maximal jumps, you can only do so many before you start to experience overuse injuries like shin splints and patellar tendon pain and things like that. What a lot of people miss is doing the lower intensity plyometric work that prepares your muscles and your tendons for the higher intensity jumps. When you're just starting out, I recommend around 80% of your plyometric training be low intensity plyometric work. Small hops, light landings, small bounds, just to be rhythmic and prepare your body to handle the more intense jumps. And even as you advance, and this is something I do with professional athletes, still keep at least 50% of your plyometrics low intensity. You want to take advantage of this base of lower intensity plyometric work because it's really safe, it's effective, and it's actually where you learn to move more efficiently. The really high intensity work is great and it's important. It's where you express that maximal power, but it also involves a lot of stiffness. So it's really hard to learn new movements and how to move efficiently if you're only doing maximal jumps. So you can progress towards more intense exercises as your body adapts, but keep some of that base work. It does really pay off. Before we move on to number 5, if you guys are learning something, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. All right, now let's talk about number 5, which is hybrid training. Hybrid training is gaining popularity because it's a type of training that combines multiple goals, like building strength and endurance at the same time. While some people worry about the interference effect, where one type of training reduces the effectiveness of another, studies show that with proper programming, you can really get the best of both worlds. Research on concurrent training of both strength and endurance shows that it helps to space out our high-intensity endurance training and our resistance training, ideally by at least 3 hours. Also, the interference effect is dependent on training volume. If you're only doing a few hours of endurance training per week, which is honestly more than most people, then it really isn't a concern to worry about. And even if you do get to higher volume endurance training, it's not like it cancels out your strength gains. It usually just reduces the rate of progress a little bit. So here are my pro tips. I typically recommend alternating between strength sessions and endurance sessions on different days. I also recommend having specific strength and endurance goals that you're working toward. Maybe this month you're working towards a 5K PR and a 5 rep max back squat PR. Again, having specific goals that you're measuring your progress towards helps you stay motivated and focused. All right, now for the bonus fun fact. You may be surprised to know that the shape of your tibia bone depends on the sports that you played growing up. This is a really fascinating graphic from the Montana Running Lab. You can see that runners have more elongated tibias that develop to resist the specific forces of running. This is an overall weaker bone though than the more robust and more circular bone of a multi-directional athlete. This has important implications for stress fractures down the road, with youth soccer players having a 40% lower rate of fractures than dedicated runners. This is particularly important during the critical years of bone mineral development in middle school and high school. As little as 3 sets of 10 jumps 3 times per week can significantly improve bone mineral density in youth athletes. Especially our young runners and non-athletes need to be getting out and doing some type of jumping and ideally multi-directional sport work to set themselves up to have stronger bones for years to come. Spread the word to a youth athlete that you know, because I think this is a really important message. If you found this video helpful, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more science-based tips, and let me know in the comments what workout routine you're focused on right now. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.